All right, good afternoon. It is 3 p.m. We will call the regularly scheduled Hutchinson Utility Commission meeting to order. We will lead off with the swearing in of our newest commissioner, Jeremy Crosby.
Hello, Jeremy. If you wanted to follow along with that, if you could just raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Jeremy Crosby,
I, Jeremy Crosby,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of Hutchinson Utilities Commissioner
of the office of Hutchinson Utilities Commissioner
of the City of Hutchinson, Minnesota,
of the City of Hutchinson, Minnesota,
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Welcome, congratulations.
Thank you.
You're next, Justin.
Oh, perfect timing. Just in time.
I think we have the consent agenda.
No, I don't. I mean, swear in, he's next to swear in.
All right, so you just want to skip to 3? Jeremy, you just want to skip to 3? Fine.
Skip.
Oh,
No,
Jeremy
you can do
Carter.
the consent agenda and stuff. I'm gonna let him do.
Okay. All right. First, I'll ask the commissioners if we have any conflicts of interest to declare today.
None.
Okay. And then next we have the item number 2, the approval of the consent agenda, which is approving the minutes and ratifying the payment of bills.
So moved. I second.
Okay, motion by Matt and second by Tom. All in favor to approve the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, and item number 3 on the agenda is approve the 2025 financial audit, presentation by Justin McGraw.
All right. Hey, good afternoon.
Welcome back.
Good afternoon, Justin.
Thanks. Good to be here. So I handed out a few different products to you this afternoon, and the one I'm going to follow is the one without a cover on it. That's what's up here on the screen, and it's the presentation. It's kind of a summation of your audit report. If you're looking for more detail or more information, your audit financial statements are a great place to start. Otherwise, as I'm going through, if questions do come up, please feel free to stop me and ask those questions at that time. So pages 1 and 2 of our presentation detail the auditor's opinion. So what that means is the auditing standards that we follow when we look at your financial records, the responsibilities of both parties, us as your auditors, you as the commission, and the big takeaway from that independent auditor's report is right there at the top in bold. We do feel that the financial statements are presented fairly, in our opinion, that can be relied upon for gauging performance of the commission as well as for future decision-making purposes. Jumping into the numbers, on slide 3, the statement of net position. This is the overall balance sheet of the commission, if you will. And we look at 2 points in time, December 31st, 2024 and December 31st, 2025. So you can see where some of those changes happened between the 2 years. Starting at the top, current assets. These are items like your cash, investment balances, accounts receivable balances, amounts owed to you from other governments. And you can see here you had a pretty healthy decrease in those current assets between 24 and 2025. A lot of that is due to the change in your cash and investment balances. Your cash balances were spent down on some significant capital activity during the year in both the electric and the gas systems. So like the electric system, you have the substation project going on, transformer project going on, some cooling tower repairs, other equipment purchases, natural gas system. You had some gas main improvements during the year, additional meters, and equipment purchases as well. So as that cash is being spent down, it's converted into a physical hard asset. What you see on 2 lines down, which is the net capital assets. So you did have that decrease you saw in your current assets is kind of reflected in the increase you're seeing in your net capital assets, and those 2 items that those few items that I had just mentioned. On the bottom half there, your liabilities, your current liabilities, these would be kind of think your routine bills, accounts payable, salaries, wages payable. You did have a decrease in those current liabilities between the 2 years, primarily related to accrued wages at the end of the year. So you had a shorter pay period at the end of the year to accrue, So you have less wages in that current liability balance. Long-term liabilities. These are primarily made up of your debt balances, bonds, and your net pension liability. So you had a decrease in those long-term liabilities. No new debt was issued in 2025. You continued to make your scheduled debt payments in 2025. And then your pension liability through the PERA, that did decrease as well in 2025, largely due to the overall pension plan's liability decreasing. So it's about 90% funded here in 2025. It was about 89% funded last year. So it is making progress and being more fully funded with increases they have done in employer-employee contributions over the years and just better performance of its investments. Then at the very bottom, net position. So this is, even if you could sell off all the assets of the commission and pay off all your debts, this is really what you'd have left over. And there's a few different categories that we have on there that those assets fall into. Your net investment and capital assets, that is all the capital assets or physical assets you have, less any debt owed against them. That did increase with the increase in your overall net capital assets and the decrease in your debt, the bonds that you have outstanding. Restricted for debt service, that did go down as well. These are amounts set aside for debt payments or bond payments. So yeah, that's set aside. And there's covenants within your bond agreements on how much you have to set aside as those bond payments or those bond principal, outstanding principal goes down, the amount you have to keep on hand or set aside goes down as well. And then the unrestricted, this is the overall what's kind of left over that doesn't fit in the other two categories, and that did have a decrease with that decrease in that cash balance being put into your capital asset balance. Speaking of cash and investment balances, here's a breakdown not only in 25 but the prior 4 years, so you can see how your cash has been classified. The restricted cash balance we did touch on, that did decrease, and that corresponds to the decrease in your overall debt balances. Designated cash balances did decrease as well with the increase in the capital activity during the year. So some of that cash was spent down, converted into physical assets, capital assets. So you saw that decrease there. Same with the operating thing, the operating category. You saw decreases in that. And some of that was spent on capital improvements as well. And looking at the activity of the commission during the year, commission-wise for both the natural gas division and the electric division, operating revenues did increase. You saw that in both divisions, which was good to see because you did have some increases in your operating expenses. You know, some of those expenses are more or less fixed to a certain degree, things like depreciation, occupancy, customer service, and the ones like purchase power, purchase gas, those do fluctuate based on demand and the operations of both divisions. Then your non-operating revenues. These are things that maybe don't fit in the operating category as far as it's something that's your primary mission to provide a service, which would be the natural gas or the electric. So these would be things like investment income. You did see a decrease in those net non-operating revenues and expenses. In 25, in 2024, you probably had one large unique item with a reimbursement from Heartland Corn for them connecting to the natural gas division. So that was a kind of a non-recurring item that you had happen last year. You didn't have that at that level in 25, so you saw that did come down a little bit. Looking at the individual divisions, starting with the electric division, again, we touched on the operating revenues increasing. You saw that their operating expenses also did increase in 2025. One of the main drivers of that increase in your operating revenues was electric generation, and that the resale of that electricity, So that became more profitable to produce that electricity and resell it on the open market, and you did that, and you saw the impacts it had on your operating revenues. And the electric division hasn't always had that where it had an operating income versus an operating loss. In 2025, it did reverse that trend. And you can see here the overall change in net position has been negative over the past 4 years. In 2025, because of some of that additional sales of the electricity, it did push it kind of up into the black there, where you had actually an increase in your overall net position for the division. And looking at the revenue per kilowatt hour between 2025 and 2024 amongst the classes that you have, pretty consistent. You did have a little bit of an increase there in the overall revenue per kilowatt hour. And one benchmark that the Energy Information Administration has is you can look at that by state. So in Minnesota, overall for all the classes, about 0.94 cents. You guys are at about 10 cents. So you're in that ballpark with the rest of your peers, here in Minnesota. The natural gas division, similar story to the electric division. You had an increase in operating revenues, slight increase in operating expenses, and overall your net operating revenues were down, largely due to that reimbursement you had from last year. You didn't have that instance here in 2025. And the change in net position, so 24 is kind of the outlier in this graph because of that unique item that happened last year with that reimbursement. 2025 was still a very good year for the natural gas division, turning an increase in that overall net position of the fund. And then revenue per metric cubic foot. You can see here there was a slight decrease overall amongst the classes for that revenue per metric cubic foot. Your revenues were up about 10%, or you had about 10% increase in that cubic foot sold, but only about a 4% increase in your revenue. So you can see there, that's what's kind of eating into that average that you have between 24 and 2025. In addition to the audit financial statements that we provide, we also issue what we call it a management letter, but really it's a letter from us as auditors to you at the commission level to let you know how the audit went. Any difficulties we encountered, any changes in your accounting practices, there were none here in 2025. And we ask a lot of your team here within this building, but we also ask a lot from some of your vendors, your banks, the city. Everybody was very helpful in giving us all the information that we requested so we could be here today to deliver the audit report. So we want to thank everybody that was involved with the audit. Thank you very much. We appreciate all the help so we could get this thing done for you guys. And then in addition to letting you know how the audit went, if we come across any recommendations to our audit, I'd like to discuss that with not only your team here, but you at the commission level. And this one's more, or these two are more of an FYI item, in the sense that they're new accounting standards that are coming in effect here in 2026. And the first one is GASB 103, financial reporting model improvements. So there's going to be, those financial statements that you have in front of you, there's going to be some changes to those in 2026 and beyond, not only in the format, but some of the content that's in there. Things like the management discussion and analysis. They are refining the content that they want to see discussed in that narrative format within your financial statements, as well as on your income statement. They're changing the classifications of that operating revenue, non-operating revenue expenses, and it's more of they're kind of outlining everything that they consider non-operating, and if it doesn't fit in those categories, it's going to move up to your operating category. So just probably a more change in format or classification than really the change of the content within that income statement that you have there. And then GASB 104, capital assets or disclosures of capital assets. This is additional note disclosures, really is what it's going to be inside your financial statements. If you have capital assets that you intend to sell, if you're going to sell it within the next 12 months, you have a plan to sell it, there's an intent there, there's going to be some additional information requirements that you're going to have to disclose to the users of those financial statements as far as what those capital assets are, what their value is, what their fair value is. So that's probably the biggest change you're going to see with that GASB 104 accounting standard change between what you saw in your statements this year and what you're going to see, potentially see next year if you have identified any capital assets that you're going to liquidate. So with that, on this last slide is my contact information. So if you're looking through any of this in your free time and you think to yourself, I should have asked Justin this, or I wish I would have asked him that, feel free to call or email, or if you're in Litchfield, stop by our office. But with that, thank you again for having me here. And does anybody have any questions before I wrap it up?
I'm here.
I don't think we do.
All right, well, thank you again. I appreciate you having us out. If anything does come up between now and next year, just feel free to reach out.
All right. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, now that we've received the presentation from Justin McGraw, I look for a motion to approve the financial audit.
Motion to approve financial audit.
No second.
All right, motion by Tom and second by Matt to approve the audit. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, agenda item number 4, our monthly financial statements.
Start, Jeremy, I think you printed off the new ones, right?
I didn't print them off, I just sent them to you like an hour
So
ago.
he just sent you new ones, I'll apologize, I missed, so we have to book every month, the GRE transmission as an estimate, and this, then I have to reverse it, but I forgot to reverse January's. So the February will be fine, it's just the year to date, that'll be a little, 200,000 less in the transmission. The other stuff on the electric that I wanted to mention was, you'll see usage was down slightly, revenue was up. But if you look at the bottom note, you'll see that we had an extra 150,000 we collected in power cost adjustment, so that pretty much makes up for the customer revenue increase. Transmission was up 100, GRE will probably be up roughly 100 almost every month, so that'll be like that the whole year. On the gas side, the only thing I wanted to mention was, you'll see we had a decrease in usage and revenue. I looked it up, there was 18% less heating degree days, so it's definitely warmer in February at 26 compared to 25. That's all I have.
Yeah, just kind of parlaying on some of that stuff, and we've touched on obviously the Storm Fern in January kind of really skewed January's financials, more so on the gas side. So obviously when you look at the gas division, you know, normally those boxes are all green, those key performance indicators. Well, we've got some yellows, and obviously the red probably will stay red all year because of just the cost of natural gas in that month. I don't think we'll get anywhere near the $5 gas, even with some smaller dollar values moving forward in some of the months. But so that one may stay that way. But as Jared mentioned, you know, we obviously generated more revenue. A big part of it was the the fuel cost adjustment we passed on to the customers to recoup a bunch of the revenue to offset the bills that we received. So there's kind of a direct kind of correlation to that. The other piece on the fuel cost, just in and of itself, how skewy the 2 years look over year is last year through February we actually had credits of $264,000 back to customers, and this year we have a charge of $523,000, so that's a change of $788,000 just in the first 2 months year over year. So you can see what the impact of Storm Fern had relative to what a normal operation is. It just kind of skews it. So you're going to see generally that financial skew all year, just like we had back in Storm Uri in 2021. We're just not going to have normal looking financials. But we are recovering from that piece. We did add some money to the rate stabilization fund this month without charging the fuel cost adjustment, so we was pleasantly surprised by that. Our February average cost was just over $3 for gas, so we ended up not having to charge because we're starting to incrementally put some money back into that fund. And if you guys recall, we had the conversation about getting that fuel cost adjustment balanced back up by the end of the year to that $600,000 that we took out that stabilized the volatility in January. So we'll keep watching month to month to see how quickly we replenish that fuel cost rate stabilization fund balance sheet item, and you know, if we can add 30 to 40,000 in every month to get us back up to where we need to be, that's great. If we're not collecting that back through the retail rate, we'll end up passing on a fuel cost adjustment so that we are starting to replenish that to put us in a better balance sheet position on that side. On the electric side, you know, we've talked about, you know, some of you guys have been around and watched the, you know, approved the budget in 2026. You know that we're going to have significant cost increases now, and so they're playing themselves out. You know, the purchase power is up $289,000 already over through year to date over last year. Portion of that is MRS, our wholesale supply cost. If you recall, we have about a 5.5% increase from our wholesale supplier, and they provide us about 75% of our energy. And so we're already seeing that taking shape every month with the invoices. So we're up $92,000 on the physical energy from them. So $50,000, you can expect $50,000 a month in increased costs from MRS over last year. And then the other bigger portion is really the MISO costs are up $197,000 year to date over last year. Part of it was we ended up having to buy energy off the market in January with Storm Fern as well, and so we had some market purchases that were $86.90 a megawatt hour on average, which is just blowing out of the water. And so obviously when the natural gas prices are super inflated, so do sometimes the energy prices because our market correlates generation with natural gas. On the flip side, we were able to sell into the market too at certain times and take advantage of that as well. So you see the sales for resales is up $218,000, and most of that is all strictly market sales. So we're ahead of pace from last year, $246,000. But then we had a dip in capacity sales of $26,000. So going into 2026, we're only selling 40 megawatts of capacity now versus 45, and so you will see that portion of the sales for resales will be lower this year than last year because we're not selling as many megawatts of capacity. But we've made up for it, at least to this point, with some market sales. And obviously that could change with Unit 1 discussions and that going out. That we'll see how the rest of the year goes. I don't anticipate us generating the revenue we did that you just heard Justin talk about, where we generated almost $4 million in revenue on sales. We're not going to get that this year, I don't think, with having some of our units out. But we'll try to mitigate any cost increases on the wholesale side with where we can leverage sales. And so we'll just keep moving along. But otherwise, nothing else really stood out. Balance sheet, we're at $18.7 million in cash right now. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we have a strategic planning meeting coming up. And I'll touch a little bit on it during the communication section. Nothing really shocking on the balance sheet side of things. And then really on the investment side, really nothing that I haven't touched on in the past. Obviously as our cash balance is dwindling, a lot of our investments that are maturing and coming in, we're putting into the money market and end up having to use that to cover construction costs. I just did the construction projections for this year, and I think through this year we're going to have another $5 to $6 million to finish up the substation project, and so we need to get together here, hopefully in April, early part of May, to really talk about what options we want to entertain to make sure we don't deplete our cash balances too far. So we'll talk a little bit about that moving forward. So just kind of be thinking about that, but overall the cash balance is staying stable, but we haven't really hit major construction and major project costs yet for the transformer substation, but we're anticipating some of those being May, June, July, where we'll probably have $5 or $6 million going out in a span of 2 or 3 months with a substation transformer hopefully being on site here end of April, May sometime. So we can kind of just stay steady along with the cash balance until then. We'll be at least in an okay position until we hit kind of the final kind of landmarks on the substation project, and then potentially with the Wilmer line, we may have a down payment on the transformer for that project as well. So we'll work through that though with our planning meeting. But otherwise, things look fairly consistent. Jared mentioned we did have a dip in the gas side in February, where it was a lot warmer than what it was last year. So we ended up, all the gas sales we had in January kind of got mitigated with February, so we're kind of back to normal trend, I would say, fairly close. So.
All right. Any questions for Jared or Jeremy?
I'll make a motion to approve the financial statements.
Second.
All right. Motion by Matt and second by Tom to approve the financial statements. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Brings us to the open forum. We do have our mayor on hand today. Gary, welcome.
Speech.
All right, we'll go straight to communications and Matt.
Not a whole lot for you guys. We're just kind of preparing for the summer. So street projects over by Edmonton and then Randall, Orchard, that area. We had our assessment hearings last night, so those are expected to probably kick off come May. We've got a bid opening later this month we're doing the utilities around the landing project. So that's kind of our big street projects for this year. Otherwise, we've got the landing project that's going up. The demolition of the old Jurgensen is supposed to take place end of April. That'll more or less just kind of cause some headaches around that area. And then It's called Maple, I think it's Maple Ridge Apartments is the new apartment complex that's going up on the north side of town at the old Burns Manor site. And I think they're hoping to move dirt potentially as soon as next month, depending on how the weather goes. They should have approvals done by the end of this month, but they want to get going as soon as kind of the weather allows them to. So that's kind of what's going on right now at the city.
Thanks for the update. We'll go over to the divisions and start with Dan.
Nothing today.
Dave?
Nothing new for me today.
So last week, we took plant 1 down to fix that cooling tower water leak. We thought that there was a broken weld or something in the pipe. During the investigation of that, we found that the pipe that was buried underground that was installed 8 years ago is extremely pitted, and one of those pits is what actually sprung the leak. Stick like your pinky through it. So right now, we have some soil samples out to see if road salt or something is getting down and corroding the pipe. Took some samples of the thickness of the coating of the pipe. Checked to see if there was any cathodic protection on the pipe. There was not. Working with HDR, who was the engineering firm that was on the project. They're looking through some stuff. Contacted Brown Intertech. They were the testing company of everything during that time. So right now, we have the plant, everything's, can't really say it's repaired. There's a Band-Aid on it for now. Long term, we're probably gonna have to figure out what to do with that pipe because it's corroding from the outside in. And it's pretty bad, so. But as of today, they got everything backfilled, everything's back to normal. We're just bleeding air out of the system right now, and then tomorrow the plant will be available again. But in the meantime, we're trying to figure out why this pipe is failing underground. So,
All right.
does that pretty much cover it, Jeremy?
Yeah, at this point, I mean, we're really in the exploratory stages, so I've talked with Mark II, just, about some avenues we may need to entertain or go down pending what we find out about that pipe. But there's something seriously going on. It could be a combination of things. It shouldn't look like that after 8 years. I've seen water infrastructure underground 40, 50 years. It don't look that bad. So I don't know if it's a combination of electrical current, eroding it, acidity in the soil, a lack of proper coating on the pipeline, whatever. It could be a combination of things. And so we need to really kind of hone in on really what's causing that. So hopefully we get back to soil testing and that gives us some indication on things. But at some point we're gonna more than likely probably have to dig up the whole pipe and see how bad it is everywhere. That couple pictures I sent you guys are just a 8-foot section of it. I'm anticipating it being all the way through. So we've got it patched right now, but we're gonna be springing leaks probably forever on that thing unless we.
How many feet of pipe is in the ground that's affected, you think?
If you do it with a wheel, but there's some curves and stuff, it was like 200 feet.
Oh.
And that pipe was put in 8 years ago?
Has the contractor been contacted at all?
Yes, I
Yep.
sent him an email yesterday, or them an email yesterday.
Response.
Not yet.
Not yet. He also did got a gun in town to shoot the thickness of the coating on there, and it doesn't look like it's real thick relative to maybe what some of our technical documents say, so we're looking at that as well.
Okay.
So stay tuned, we'll let you know as we kind of hear more and kind of pull things together, but that's going to be a project that's going to morph into something larger than we thought, just a leak there. So, and obviously it's going to be generally somewhat time sensitive. Unit 1 going out, you can't have both plants down for long periods of time. So, but until we know what we're dealing with here and timelines, it's the information we got right now. So,
Okay. All right.
but we'll keep you updated.
Thanks, Mike. Byron?
Just working on annual training for everybody, so we're ready to go for construction season, working on all the equipment, changing oils, all that stuff, so everything's ready to go. Looks like it's gonna be nice, so we can start working maybe soon. We got a letter from the state, from our mid-ops audit on March 1st, saying that we are completed, no issues with our 2024 audit. And then we got a letter the next day saying our new audit for 2025 is going to be May 18th week, so we're very ready for that, because it's a lot of material to get together and get ready, so that's it.
Don, I
Thank you.
do have one question, if I may.
Go for it.
From the First Lady, this is coming from the First Lady. So, how is the progress on the substation along the trail? Is that on
Dan, you want to give an
schedule
update?
or?
It is on schedule for now. It may have got pushed back a few months because we're waiting on the transformer. So the manufacturer keeps pushing that delivery date back. As Jeremy mentioned, the last update we got, it should be here in June. But based on that, we're probably putting the substation into service probably November, when we were hoping more for September. If the transformer been here on time. So that's the delay right now.
So the trail is probably not open till,
Probably for the remainder of the year. Yep.
okay.
Yeah, I also got hit up over the weekend about the trail when we start doing the substation downtown behind the plant, and, you know, is that gonna be closed, and when's that gonna be closed, and is there a route around there? And they said, well, obviously when we get closer, you know, I'm anticipating that's gonna be down a segment up as well when the construction's going on at the downtown substation as well, but, you know, we'll have to think if there's a way to jot that. Obviously I know walkers and bikers and snowmobilers and all that, so I'm hearing it in the community as well, and so. Obviously our job is to try to minimize the amount that stuff is out, but large equipment, electrical lines, that type of stuff we can't. Some of it's out of our control on how fast things get done. And I think we're getting to the point where the buffer that we had built in on this project, it's starting to get shorter and shorter, and we're starting to lose some of that buffer time, but knock on wood, the transformer comes and it doesn't get pushed back again, but there's still some structures that need to be installed and some coordination that needs to be done so that when everything's ready to go, the lines can be switched. You know, we're minimizing downtime with the grid in this region, because it's a high load area as well going into the city, so. A lot of moving parts, but hopefully the coordination will work well, but until we get the transformer and some of those other pieces of equipment erected, we're still kind of moving along, so. It's a good question. Hopefully it's all complete by the end of the year though. That's the goal.
All right.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you. Anything else, Jared?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. Human resources, Angie?
I've just been busy working with Byron and our new third-party consortium for drug and alcohol. So getting everyone in for their testing on that. And then also I've been working on the compensation study that we have going on right now.
All right. Thank you. Mark, anything from legal?
Nothing today.
Thank you. Back to you, Jeremy.
Just caught the high level things, obviously the natural gas prepaid deal, that's closing tomorrow. So give you guys an update on that. They issued over $800 million in bonds. We got some good margins on that, so they're just wrapping up the paperwork. Mark and I have been sitting in the last week, and I know some of you guys have come in and signed signature pages, and I still got one more piece I have to get back to the attorneys out in DC, and then that one should be executed, and we should get our final executed documents, and we should be moving forward. And then I did send you guys generally a financial impact, version 3. Things were still changing and updating as of yesterday's documents. But you can see, as we kind of move through this year process of trying to get a prepaid deal done and trying to get certain minimum discounts, the financial impact it can have for not only utilities but the customers. And so that top table, if you look at that, this is the known financial impact. So over the next 9 years, we'll say $1.5 million in natural gas costs just on a 34-cent discount on these prepaid deals. And then the bigger piece of bringing in Heartland Corn as a customer on our pipeline underneath, we get a portion of their discount as well because they're on an industrial load underneath a municipal utility. And that is looking to generate $3.5 million worth of additional revenue for us over that first 9-year period. That bottom table there's a little bit of uncertainty there. One, the bottom table, what we've got in the original or the final documents is as long as we can get a minimum of a 20-cent discount when we remarket these bonds in 2035, as long as we get the 20 cent, the deal continues to move forward. If we get a higher discount than that, we just get more savings. So as a minimum, on the remarketing period that comes up in 2035 for the remaining 30 years of the life, we'll generate another $3.4 million in savings at the minimum 20-cent discount to be achieved. And if it's more than that, then that number continually goes up. In the piece that's not in there with the revenue from Heartland Corn, they have the ability at the remarketing period, which is supposed to be at the end of July of 2035, they have the ability to decide if they want to stay in or not. So I haven't forecasted any additional revenue streams for the remaining portion of the 30 years. But as I've talked with their CEO and their people down there, as long as the discount is still favorable, they're going to stay in for the long haul. They just want to get their feet wet with the first 9 years, see how it all works out. And with the volumes they're putting in, they're saving about $700,000 a year in natural gas costs. So it's a significant cost savings to that industrial customer as well. So it's going to be a win-win for all parties involved. And so, that'll go right to the bottom line with revenue and a cost reduction on the gas side. So that'll help stabilize, some of our long-term natural gas supply. As part of this deal, I also did lock up fixed price gas in that deal through 2034. So I got another 7 years of some of that index gas I've locked up anywhere between $4.04 to $4.14. And so most of the gas that our fixed price gas right now that we've been purchasing is $4.08. So I've extended it out from 2026 out to 2033, 34 time frame. And so we've gotten roughly the same price. The pricing was good for the calendar years out. So I converted the index gas into a fixed price so we don't have volatility in the index out in the future years. So we're sitting really well on the gas side of things as far as the commodity side of costs, keeping that hedged for the majority of our volumes. Obviously, depending on our normal volumes, we usually hedge and fixed price anywhere from 75 to 80% of our gas needs. The remaining portion, which a lot of you guys know, we'll buy off the spot market price based on what people use on that particular day. And usually the spot market price blends down our costs because it's usually cheaper until you get some of these critical storms that all of a sudden the price jumps from $3 to $80. Then, then we're subject to the market price a little bit. But we're hedged well for the normal 99% of market pricing, both on the financial and the physical side of gas. So we're sitting well there, and so it was a long project and a lot of people involved and a lot of attorneys, a lot of organizations, but it'll be a good win for Hutchinson Utilities. So that's kind of taking up most of my time, and then just thinking about the strategic planning meeting, kind of start looking at your guys' calendar to see what maybe have available as we move forward, so that we get together and talk about not only the kind of culmination of the final costs on the transmission substation project up at the Hutch sub, but then also start looking over the next 4 or 5 years with the Wilmer Line project, and then some of the other projects that we have just to maintain our infrastructure, things of that nature. And kind of see where you guys want to end up as far as financially and cash balances and financing structures. We've talked about it previously, but now, we're getting to the point where, we probably need to take some action here, and because there's a process, we want to do some bond financing. We got to have the city council approve a resolution to reimburse ourselves, and we have to issue some bonds. I did talk with Andy a little bit today. They're going to be bonding some today, this year as well. I think he was saying in the $5.5 million, what he was estimating. So it leaves $4 to $5 million of room for us if we want to do some bonding this year to reimburse ourselves for some of the costs that we're going to have remaining on the substation project. So we're sitting in a good position, but there are some steps we would need to take to get those things moving, and then we would need to work with Ellers if we wanted to bond as an example versus doing a line of credit or thing. So I just wanted to work through that with you guys, make sure we're moving in the right path. So just keep that in mind and let us know what your schedules look like. So
Thank you for your hard work on that prepaid deal.
thanks for approving that stuff. It's been a good project. So
And strategic planning, you're thinking late April, early May?
yeah, I think whatever works for you guys. So whatever your availability is, I think that's probably mid-May is probably as late as we want to get. Some of the resolutions, like the bond resolution, you have to have that, that approved at least within 60 days of your expenditures on some of that. And so we have a lot of stuff coming up this summer, so that'd be good timing if we wanted to do at least a first round of financing. And then we'll obviously talk about the phases of that Wilmer line over the next several years and maybe some timing on additional if we need to, so.
Okay. Will you
I
send out
can
a?
send out an email.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, on to agenda item number 7, policy reviews. We had a couple exempt handbook and the non-exempt handbook. We did not have any policies for changes. Item number 8, unfinished business. We have none. So right into number 9, new business. We have approval of the New Ulm Natural Gas Firm Transportation Capacity Agreement. Jeremy.
Yes, thanks. So New Ulm's current transportation and interconnect agreement expires at the end of March. March 31st is the final deadline for their contract. It originally was put in place in 2004 when the pipe was put into service. We built the pipeline in 2003 and we put it in service. Part of the building of the pipeline was that we were bringing New Ulm, the city of New Ulm, on the transmission line as a transportation customer. That's where the pipeline got sized to the capacity it is. So the new contract that's in front of you today is to renew not the existing contract, but a renewal of a new contract with a 5-year contract term that allowed the new utility director to come on board. I just talked with him today. He was originally from New Ulm, moved down to Phoenix. He was basically working with the water utility, but is moving back towards New Ulm. So I wanted to make sure that we have it long enough where he could get involved, understand how things are going before we re-up the contract. So I talked to him a little about it as well. So we're doing a 5-year contract. We're phasing in the rate up to the normal retail rate that we're charging all of our other large users on the pipeline, which is that 20 cent a decatherm cost, and we phasing that in over 2 years. So that in 2028 we're up to the full rate, and then we're fine with that. So what I'm asking the commission to approve today is the new contract that we're going to put in place for New Ulm for a portion of their capacity. The other piece that's significant is they've actually moved off of, they originally had 20,000 decatherms of capacity locked up, and part of that arrangement was because they had Heartland Corn underneath them. But now Heartland Corn is a direct customer of ours because they own their own transmission lateral line off of ours, so they no longer needed to include Heartland Corn's capacity in there. So they've downgraded their volumes that they need to reserve to 15,000, so that's their big piece. The rates increase and we're phasing in up to our retail rate, and then going from 20,000 decatherms down to 15. So they're saying that should cover them for the next 5 years, and if something changes within their community where they need to relook at that, we'll have those conversations when we get closer.
Okay.
And then I guess the other piece I mentioned in there is we did add in some imbalance penalties this time around that was not in the original agreement, and so we worked through that as well, because everyone that's flowing gas on our pipeline has to stay within an imbalance tolerance, because we're also connected to an interstate pipeline, and so everyone that owns transmission lines have to be responsible for making sure that what you're saying you're going to nom or purchase is what you're going to use. They don't want you playing the system and playing gas prices and doing some of that. So I've baked in some additional imbalance penalties that says if you're not staying on top of your imbalances, then we're going to charge you for it, which is very customary in the natural gas industry. So we put some of those in as well. So those are a couple of big changes that weren't in the original agreement as well.
All right. Questions for Jeremy?
No, I don't think so. No motion to approve. I'll second.
All right, motion by Tom and second by Matt to approve the New Ulm Natural Gas Firm Transportation Capacity Agreement. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the New Ulm Natural Gas Interconnect Agreement.
So this is kind of the ancillary agreement that goes with the transportation agreement. You can't get gas to them unless it flows through an interconnect station that signifies the custodial point of when it's our gas and when it's their gas. And so this interconnect agreement we have with all the customers, we have different interconnect stations at Lafayette, City of Broughton, 212 area, the Fairfax area. So this one is the interconnect at the New Ulm leg down by them that basically signifies that. We'll maintain the interconnect station. We'll make sure that all the meters are calibrated correctly, that if there's any general maintenance that needs to be done on that station, that we'll do that. So So that piece just needs to be approved as well. Normally, these go in concurrent, these interconnect agreements just go running concurrent with the transportation agreement, because if you don't have a transportation agreement, you can't have an interconnect and vice versa. But we did signify in here that this is, the 5-year term follows the transportation agreement, so we just added in the timeline as well. So we're just looking for you guys to approve the interconnect agreement so that we can flow gas through the station to their customer load down there.
All right. Questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the New Ulm interconnect agreement. Second.
Motion by Matt, second by Tom to approve the interconnect agreement. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have request 10521, the close interval survey. Byron.
Yes, it's that wonderful time of year. So this is something we talked about last year, trying to do 1/5 of our line every year, so this year will be under 20 miles. We had the same company do it last year, came back with no issues from Tremont, 25 miles north, or 20 miles north, excuse me. So we're hoping the same again this year, but we'll start now from that point, go 20 more miles north. So we did get a couple bids, but like I said, Lake Superior was the cheapest one, and they did the stuff last year, so it's same vendor, same numbers, same everything, so it's good to keep it consistent, so.
All right. Good project. Any questions for Byron?
A motion to approve requisition 10521. I'll second.
All right. Motion by Tom, second by Matt. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have requisition 10519, blasting and recoat, MLB V212 site.
So blasting should say sand blasting, just to clarify. But that was my error. So, as Jeremy said, this pipe has been put in the ground since 2004, and some of it comes above ground, and we haven't done a whole lot of maintenance or upkeep on it. So what we're gonna do is take it down to bare metal and recoat it. So we can get a primer, 2 intermediate coats, and then a top coat. So it's supposed to be 20-year paint. It's a 2-part epoxy. Yeah, we've done some here in town. It's amazing how different it looks compared to. So it's a little more expensive than Joe's body shop painting it, but these are pipeline coaters.
Sounds like we have some other pipe that could use it too.
Bail that in.
All right. Any questions for Byron?
I'll make a motion to approve requisition 10519. I'll second.
All right. Motion by Matt, second by Tom. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, 9E, selling of surplus equipment.
Yes, we have a 2006 tractor backhoe that we have put some money in the past for repairs, and then now the transmission failed, and the transmission repair is more than the tractor's worth itself. So we talked about it, and we did have a schedule for next year as to get rid of anyway, and replace with different pieces of equipment. So we're just suggesting at this point to be able to just sell it as is and get what we can get for it for parts and start fresh.
Okay. Will we need to purchase a different tractor sooner then?
Yeah, but that's next year.
Yeah, but it would be a different type. It's
Right.
not gonna be the same type of tractor. It's probably gonna be a smaller unit, something different.
Not a piece of equipment we need for this
No.
season?
No.
You have questions, Tom?
No. I'll make a motion to approve selling surplus equipment. I'll second.
All right. Motion by Tom, second by Matt to sell the surplus equipment. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are tabling the next item, so we'll go to requisition 10531, the GE Stage 2 LPT blade warranty replacement proposal.
Yeah, so this is the GE's proposal for the warranty repair on the LPT Stage 2 blades that were cracked on our 6000. The work would be done by GE, $383,308.43. May be covered under warranty. we won't know until they do the investigation. And then the other $197,350.86 will be for the field service for removal and install. So I guess looking for approval of the proposal and then also approving of the rec to move forward with this. But then also Pro Energy got back to me last week, and they may have another option for us potentially. But if that falls through, if we could just get this approved so we can keep moving forward. But if something comes back from Pro Energy that is worthwhile, then Jeremy will let you guys know or whatever.
Did GE have a time frame to begin?
300 days.
300 days.
Induction this spring. That's what they're saying. Of course, we don't know what spring means. It's
So that's what we're trying to keep this moving so we can get it inducted as soon as possible. If it is a 300-day time frame.
right now they had communicated, at least the last time we talked to them, which was 2 weeks ago, that their average throughput through their level 4 shop is 300 days right now.
Is that worst case scenario? Like
No, I
best
don't
case.
think
That
it's
would
the
be
case.
best case, given what we've
What's
gone
the
through.
worst case scenario?
So we're thinking a year. Like we keep saying a year. Worst case scenario is a year. It's probably out.
Okay. So I know you sent an email on some of that stuff, but the timing of the transmission line, and you think we'll be okay there?
It's not ideal. I mean, we've talked about it internally. Dan and Mike and I and staff have talked just about the timing of when that substation gets finalized and we actually have to start taking down lines and switching lines. You know, we do have, so, you know, the 3 units downtown that we may need to run for grid support, potentially. Of course, there's obviously the risk of if you're running it and the market prices are low or high, you know, you end up incurring the cost for running generation, but that's really the only avenue that we're gonna have. We would have to potentially run grid support anyway for Great River Energy. If they call us and say, hey, we need you to fire up some units while we're converting over the transmission lines. I mean, our intention always is to try to do it as quickly as possible so that you're mitigating any transmission grid breaks in the region. But we have enough, I think, generation here between the 3 downtown and Unit 9 to cover hopefully that transition piece. I mean, they've had some transmission lines down already this summer with Excel Energy's lines down and some, and so we would mitigate it. It obviously helps if the project gets pushed into the fall a little bit more, because usually loads come off the heating season. So I mean, I guess maybe the saving grace of the transformer not coming till June is, Dan mentioned, hey, we're looking at have this thing done in November, so if it moves into October, November, that helps a little bit more with grid support because loads are usually less demandful in the fall. So, but it'll all be a coordinating piece. The bigger piece that now kind of scares me is if Unit 1's out and the downtown is out because we've got an issue with the piping that needs to be addressed. How we need to try to coordinate that so that we're not left with just Unit 9 up here that we typically only run once a year for emissions testing and to make sure it runs for emergency backup. So we've got a few moving parts here on some of these projects, but if Unit 1 gets out and gets inducted, I mean, we know that's not coming back this year. So then the chess pieces, can we limp along the piping down there, until we get through the switching of the transmission lines at the substation. If all of a sudden the pipe bursts down there and it's flooding the downtown and we gotta do an emergency repair, when's that gonna happen relative to that project going on? So we're probably on borrowed time on the piping down there. We're probably gonna incur some more leaks. There's no question about the way this 8-foot section looks.
Is there a turbine we can rent or borrow, like to fill a gap?
There's not to the size that we would need for grid support. I mean, there's ones that you can lease and you can actually buy ones, but a lot of them are the older ones, the diesel generators that come on a trailer. But we don't want to run diesel here. We're set up for natural gas. We don't have diesel, and they're not really efficient. And usually they're like 3 megawatts, so they're not anything of substance like these downtown units where they're triple that. We're running a nameplate of 9.
So we maybe just need to hope Pro Energy has a solution possibly.
It's on premise and as on the function for the meeting, so we'll see what they come back with.
Yeah. The other piece we haven't got any feedback on, switching out to a PC model or leasing to own a PC model or any of that. We haven't heard anything back on those things. Again, it's not like a broken record to a lot of you guys have been around. I mean, they're just, the PA models are just going away. They're not gonna support them significantly anymore. They've moved on to the PCs and their latest versions of turbines. With demand data centers and load growth moving all over the country, they're building more units than they ever have, and so at some point, they're gonna eventually say, we're just not interested in working on those anymore, but
What's
I think the big piece is because it's under warranty yet, I feel like they feel compelled that we at least need to fix it, because if it was something that was an issue when it left our shop, we need to own that piece. But I wouldn't hold my breath to think that this is all gonna be covered under warranty, but, you know, if they find some things through their investigation that can substantiate, yeah, there was some of that stuff there when it came out, then they'll honor the warranty piece of it, but. So that may be a bigger conversation for the strategic planning meeting too, is, you know, this unit, we have tied to most of the capacity. We entered into that additional capacity agreement that went from 2030 to 2035. And that was a significantly lucrative capacity agreement, so we're gonna have to make sure we've got enough units or at least contracts in place to suffice that. And I mentioned that, you know, it's over a $3.3 million revenue stream every year for that. So we need to ideally keep it in service. So this may be the best course right now, is if it takes a year to get it back, we may lose some market sales, but it might be the best alternative to not having the unit and having to fulfill obligations long-term on the capacity side of things, so.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we can look at other units, but I think that will be a little more problematic in purchasing generators, especially with these two transmission substation projects in the Wilmer line. The timing of buying new ones just isn't ideal, not that we can't look at that, but then you're looking at significantly bonding costs, right?
What's the lead time on a new PC?
Well, it depends on what you type. I mean, if you actually bought a brand new one, they'd be years out.
Yeah.
You know, I think like he told us there's 6-7 years out now on a new turbine. Sometimes they say they have some PCs that are coming back from leases, or someone has, you know, purchased a new one and now they're looking to resell their PC. So, you know, it's at least worth exploring the question. But again, you know, what's happening now is we're in the wrong time of the country to be looking for engines, because people that had a PC that were looking to get rid of them are now keeping them, right? Because they're more marketable, or they need them because one of their other PCs is going in for repairs, and so they need to put this one back in service as their backup. And so that's really what happened with the lease, is the customer just said, they originally wanted to put all the liability on us, that if, hey, we leased their engine and something happened to it, we had to purchase them a new one. And GE said, no, I'm not pushing that onto a customer, we'll take on the risk. And then they just said, no, we're not willing to do that, so.
Unfortunately, I think there will be ongoing reliability concerns with ours. So I think you have to continually be looking at what other options are out there and what do we need to evaluate, because
Right.
ever since we sent it off to get the oil changed, it's just been a nightmare.
Yep.
It's been slow going.
Is there like a waiting list we can get on?
I
Little horse trade?
The word midshaft is still stuck in my head.
So
Well, I mean, Tom, to your point, I mean, when you're thinking about lists, when engines are 6 or 7 years out now,
Yeah. Or even like,
you need to start thinking about that
Yeah.
Yeah, that
piece,
should be
because by the
every
time,
discussion at our
right,
yeah.
strategic planning session.
yeah, the supply chain is tightened up and supply and demand is going to grow for turbines and generation capability now, so.
All right, so looking for approval on this with GE, with the idea that there may be another option that may take its place.
I'll make a motion to approve proposal 1725355 and requisition 010531.
I will second requisition 10531 and proposal 1725355.
All right, motion by Matt and second by Tom. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any approved? Or any? Motion approved. Item 10. Care to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor? Anybody not want to adjourn?
I was trying to set the new
Motion
guy up
carries.
here.
Yeah, to do.